9 out of 10 gardeners are planting these 9 vegetables in the wrong place, and it has nothing to do with sunlight, fertilizer, or how much time they spend out there every weekend. It comes down to one decision made before a single seed ever goes into the soil. Bigger gardens are supposed to mean bigger harvests. That's what we've all been taught. But that's not always true, and by the end of this video, you're going to look at your garden completely differently. If you've been struggling with twisted carrots, cracked tomatoes, or a squash plant that mysteriously collapsed overnight, stick around, because the reason is coming, and it's simpler than you think. Before we get into it, if you're the kind of gardener who's tired of guessing and wants advice that's actually tested, not just repeated from an old gardening book, hit subscribe now. This channel is built for people who want real results, not recycled tips. Now let's talk about why your garden size was never really the problem. Millions of Americans today are gardening from patios, decks, townhome yards, and small suburban lots. Space is tighter than it used to be. And here's the part nobody tells you. That's not actually a disadvantage. Some of the most productive vegetable gardens in the country right now are growing in containers, not garden beds. The size of your garden isn't holding back your harvest. The real issue is that certain vegetables were never built to thrive in open ground the way we've always assumed. Stick with me, because the first one on this list might completely surprise you. Let's start with root vegetables, because this is the one that fools almost everyone. Carrots and potatoes usually come out of the ground looking nothing like the picture on the seed packet. Twisted. Forked. Sometimes broken in half before you even get them fully out of the soil. Most gardeners blame themselves. They think they watered wrong or planted too late. But the real cause is underground, literally. Compacted clay and buried rocks distort root growth before you ever see a problem on the surface. The roots hit resistance, and instead of growing straight down, they twist around it. Jason Miller ran into this every single year in his backyard bed. Rock-hard soil, gnarled carrots, and a potato harvest that always looked disappointing compared to the seed catalog photos. Last year, he switched both crops into deep containers filled with loose potting mix. No tilling. No rock picking. Just soil that had nowhere to fight back. When he pulled his carrots this fall, they came out straight, smooth, and nearly twice as long as anything he'd grown in ground. Loose growing media lets roots develop exactly the way they're designed to, and that alone can turn an average harvest into one worth showing off. But that's only part of the story, because fruiting vegetables reveal an even bigger surprise. Tomatoes and peppers are famous for splitting, cracking, or ripening unevenly, and most gardeners assume that's just part of growing them. It isn't. Garden soil holds moisture inconsistently. Dry for days, then soaked after a heavy rain. That swing in moisture is exactly what causes tomatoes to crack right as they're about to ripen. Containers solve this in a way in-ground beds simply can't. The soil warms faster in a pot, which speeds up ripening, and because you control the watering directly, you're not at the mercy of the weather. Amanda Brooks noticed this the first season she moved her tomato plants onto her back porch in containers. She got her first ripe tomato nearly 3 weeks earlier than her neighbor's in-ground plants, and barely lost a single fruit to cracking all season. Warmer root zones and controlled moisture aren't a small advantage. For fruiting vegetables, that's often the entire difference between a mediocre harvest and a genuinely great one. Here's a question for you. Have you ever had a tomato plant that looked perfectly healthy but barely gave you any usable fruit? Drop a comment and tell me what happened, because chances are, one of these 9 vegetables is the culprit. Now let's talk about leafy greens, because this next one solves a frustration almost every American gardener has faced. Lettuce and spinach are reliable in spring, and then almost overnight, they bolt, turn bitter, and become inedible the moment real summer heat arrives. Most gardeners assume that's just the natural end of the season. It's not entirely. In-ground beds trap heat directly around the shallow roots of leafy greens, and that trapped heat is what triggers bolting early. Containers give you an option in-ground beds never will. You can move them. Rachel Turner started shifting her lettuce containers into afternoon shade once the summer heat kicked in, just sliding them a few feet across her patio when the sun got intense. That one small habit kept her harvesting fresh lettuce well into July, weeks after her old in-ground bed had already turned bitter and gone to seed. Mobility isn't just convenient. For heat-sensitive crops, it can add an entire extra month of harvest. Now, for anyone dealing with a garden bed that's slowly being taken over, this next one is going to feel very familiar. Mint, zucchini, and squash are notorious for spreading further than anyone intended. What starts as one small plant can take over an entire bed within a few weeks, crowding out everything around it. That's not bad luck. That's exactly what these plants are built to do. Their root systems and vines are naturally aggressive, and open soil gives them nothing to stop them. David Chen learned this the hard way after his mint completely swallowed half his vegetable bed in a single summer. The following year, he grew it in a container instead, and for the first time, his tomatoes finally had room to breathe. Containers naturally limit root spread, which means easier harvesting, better behaved plants, and no more losing other crops to one aggressive neighbor. We're almost through all 9, but this next problem might be the most common one of all, especially if you've ever lost a plant that looked perfectly fine just days earlier. Cucumbers and squash frequently develop powdery mildew and stem rot, and it often seems to come out of nowhere. A healthy, thriving vine 1 week, and wilted or covered in white patches the next. The real cause is airflow, or the lack of it. Ground-level vines trap moisture against the leaves, and that damp, still air is exactly what fungal problems need to take hold. Melissa Adams lost her entire cucumber crop to powdery mildew 2 summers in a row growing them in ground. Last year, she grew them in a container with a simple trellis instead, lifting the vines up off the ground and into open air. That one change gave her a full season with 0 mildew and her best cucumber harvest yet. Better airflow means fewer fungal problems, and for vining vegetables especially, that can be the difference between a short harvest and a long one. So here's what all 9 of these vegetables are really teaching us. The best harvest was never about the biggest garden. It comes down to giving each plant the specific conditions it actually needs, instead of following whatever method tradition handed down to us. Root vegetables need loose soil. Fruiting vegetables need warmth and controlled moisture. Leafy greens need the ability to escape the heat. Spreading crops need boundaries. And vining vegetables need airflow. Containers give you control over every single one of those conditions, and that's exactly why they often outperform traditional garden beds. If this changed how you think about your own garden, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we've got a lot more of these real, tested gardening insights coming, and you won't want to miss them. Before you go, pick just one vegetable from this list, the one that's given you the most trouble, and move it into a container this week. You might be surprised how quickly things turn around. And if your tomatoes have ever cracked or split right before you could pick them, that's actually tied to one specific watering habit almost every gardener gets wrong, container or not, and it's an easy fix once you see it. That's exactly what we're covering next.